Dangerous Hurricane Irene continues to get better organized now north of Hispaniola. I'm Mike Naso from IPR with the latest on Hurricane Irene. There it is on the water vapor imagery, and you can clearly see this is a classic hurricane in the making here as I speed that loop up just a bit. Clearly we have well-defined outflow, especially on off towards the east and northeast, and the convection is building. You can clearly see the difference over the last several hours. The strengthening appears to have slackened off a bit nonetheless as this system continues towards the Bahamas where we have those hurricane warnings out. It is expected to become a major hurricane, a Category 4 by the time it is impacting areas of, say, the Abacos and Grand Bahama Island, the same region impacted so horribly from Hurricane Floyd back in 1999. But let's get the latest now on this dangerous hurricane in the Atlantic Basin. As of 11 p.m. Eastern Time, Irene was at 19.9 north, 69.2 west. Winds were actually 100 miles per hour, not 95, 100. Gusting to 120. It's a Category 2 hurricane. It's moving west-northwest at 11. 980 millibars. It looks like it's fluctuating as it kind of scrapes up against Hispaniola, but once it clears by, say, tomorrow night and by Wednesday, it will be through a lot of the Bahamas and be approaching Category 4 strength and become a Category 4 hurricane, it looks like, sometime Thursday evening, and then begin to draw northward as the ridging weakness appears from the troughiness off to the north, and we see an eventual motion even north or north-northeast. But there's a lot of uncertainty. If it took the right edge of this cone, it could be much, much closer to, say, Cape Hatteras, and much later, Sunday morning. If it took the left edge of this cone, it could be much quicker and be making landfall somewhere near, say, Miami sometime Thursday night. So that is there's a big difference because of the way the coastline slopes between Sunday morning and Thursday night landfalls. The best bet is sometime between Friday and Saturday, a landfall here somewhere from the central Florida coastline to North Carolina, with the writing somewhat on the wall now. Areas of Charleston, Cape Fear, Wilmington, this whole region here, most at risk. Keep in mind this is almost identical to Hurricane Floyd's track in September of '99, except Floyd was moving due west at a further latitude to the north, and then it made that turn just to the north of Eleuthera, and then ended up basically where Irene is expected to be Thursday, and then made the turn like that. This is going to be pulled up much farther south than Floyd ever was, if it does pull up that far south at all, as we have a lot of uncertainty. Now, the new model guidance from the NOAA aircraft, which has sampled the environment ahead of the storm, this is not the one with the sample in it. This is the older version of the models. We will see overnight how these models adjust to the sampling of the environment, but clearly they're indicating that the Turks, Caicos, and the Bahamas are going to get devastated by a major hurricane, a Category 4, and then after that, somewhere on the east coast, the UK Met going to South Carolina, the H-Wharf heading up here towards Georgia, the GFDL towards Fort Lauderdale. But keep in mind how much slower some of these models are. This is 5 days out, and we're still not quite at landfall. 5 days. This is going to be a long, long track storm if that is the case. It feels like years since this thing was over the northern islands, let alone by the time it would get all the way up 5 days from now to the Carolina coastline, if that is indeed where it goes. If the current motion continued, we'd be talking about probably 60 hours from now, this thing coming into Key Biscayne as a Category 4. That's not going to happen. It doesn't look like it will begin to turn, but where that turn occurs is critical. Is it a more gradual one? Is there more ridging left behind to where it kind of buries itself here slowly into the coastline? Or is it a more rapid turn more towards Cape Hatteras? That is the unknown right now, and we will continue to watch this progress. Intensification-wise, Irene shouldn't have much of a problem. You can see the anticyclones to the south of the hurricane. The hurricane's up here, so it is getting about 5 knots of southerly wind shear. The environment should improve as it moves on to the north. although gradual weakening would be expected before landfall just due to the fact of interaction with a trough and pooling northward. Once you get up towards 30 north, it's hard here to maintain those extreme intensities. Nonetheless, if we have a monster Category 4, not only will it devastate the Bahamas, then whatever energy it builds up will then bury itself into the U.S. East Coast, and this will be a devastating landfall if that is the case. It's still too early to say exactly where Irene might go. You can see the cloud tops are warming a bit. You can see obviously it's trying to pop out an eye. The intensification appears to have halted. Nonetheless, once it clears, it won't have any trouble. Remember Hurricane Floyd in '99 underwent a lot of wind shear and didn't look half as good as this when it was in the position a little bit further to the northeast. Once it cleared out of that wind shear, it intensified almost to Category 5 strength. Not saying that's going to happen with Irene, but nonetheless, 135, 140 miles an hour not out of the question as it roars towards the Abacos and Grand Bahama Island. It is going to be a very serious situation. Residents in the Turks and Caicos, you should have already begun your hurricane preparation and be listening to local emergency management on what they want you to do. You saw what this did as Puerto Rico as a minimal hurricane. It's expected to be a major one by the time it roars through, and it's unknown right now what islands would be in the eye or the eye wall, if at all. So it's going to be very critical to watch. There's another view of it. Clearly you can see earlier this morning it wasn't looking that good, but by the time night has fallen, look at the difference. Look at all of a sudden it's got that comma shape, and it's definitely starting to look like it's going to pop out an eye and continue right up through the Bahamas. But again, any deviation left or right could mean a big difference for Cape Hatteras or Miami. But all areas up the East Coast need to keep a wary eye on this one. You can see there is the setup, and what we're expecting is that the ridging is going to break down enough to cause a weakness that is going to pull Hurricane Irene on up to the north, and then we'll see how shortwave troughs interact and how much ridging's left over. With the models slowing down and with the new sampled environment from the NOAA aircraft just getting into the next run of the models, we're going to see how it interacts, because if there is a shift east or west, that could mean a big difference, say by 5 a.m. tomorrow. We could be talking about a lot different story than what we see right now. Nonetheless, clearly a well-organized hurricane. A little flat here on the northwest side. That is probably due to the very favorable anticyclone being a little bit too far to the south and shearing the system by about 5 knots or so. Nonetheless, you can see it's fighting off Hispaniola and some wind shear, and it's gotten a Category 2 while doing it. And it became a hurricane while crossing Puerto Rico. Any kind of storm with this willpower to survive is a pretty eerie system, no doubt, as it will continue that track right on up through most of the Bahamas the next 2 to 3 days. Once again, you can see it on the edge of the screen here with the East Coast. You see the troughiness, the ridging will back away. Out will come Irene. How far north, how fast? If it's this far south, it's kind of hard to see it getting to 78 west south of Andros Island and then just jaunting due north or north-northeast. It would probably be something more gradual, but then that would put Florida, Georgia, South Carolina at risk. If it doesn't stay that far south, it could move more on the northern edge and be more of a threat to Cape Hatteras. Right now, the middle guidance would probably be something through most of the Turks, Caicos, Bahamas, Grand Bahama Island, then up and around into the South Carolina, North Carolina coastline. Probably more likely South Carolina, but again, that would depend on exactly when the turn would occur. It's kind of like Floyd all over again for those tracking back in '99. You remember the stress, and we're with it again here with Hurricane Irene in 2011. A lot has changed, but uncertainty with hurricanes, still the same. I'm Mike Nasel from Internet Partnership Radio. Stay tuned for continuing coverage of dangerous Hurricane Irene.